prosecution because of her constant and brilliant expose of the shenanigans and misconduct within the top level of the Los Angeles Police Department, including Chief Charlie Beck and his family. Mrs. Cannick, or Ms. Cannick, consistent and cutting-edge journalism earned her the nickname of LAPD's critic-in-chief by LA Weekly, when it named her one of LA Weekly's most interesting people of 2015. On November 26, 2014, with knowledge that Ms. Cannick was present as a journalist at one of the protests here in Los Angeles that the city refers to as the Ferguson protest, Ms. Cannick, in full view of Chief Beck, who looked at her, was arrested. Falsely arrested along with scores of other protesters and spent the night in jail. Out of over 100 people who were arrested that night, Ms. Cannick, the journalist, is being prosecuted based on allegations that can only be described as bold-faced lies. Throughout the world, it is recognized that in democratic countries, we don't arrest journalists for covering stories, including protests and demonstrations, but that is exactly what's happened here. And it is clear that the city of Jackson are in retaliation for the embarrassment that her stories have caused the department and Chief Beck in particular. We are also here for the arraignment of Evan Bush, who stands to my left, a young man who is part of the Black Lives Matter movement. He faces charges related to his efforts to pass out cards, speaking cards, at the Los Angeles Police Commission hearing focused on the killer cops of Ezell Ford. For this act of civic engagement, Mr. Bunch was assaulted, battered, arrested, jailed, and charged, and faces criminal charges today. Mr. Bunch was just in this courthouse with Luz Flores, another member of the Black Lives Matter movement, this past Friday, when they entered not guilty pleas to a total of 7 misdemeanor counts, arising from their appearance this past Wednesday at a public event for the opening of Summer Night Light here in Los Angeles. This opening was advertised, was tweeted out, was emailed as a public event that all citizens of Los Angeles should be able to attend. However, according to the LAPD's own report, when officers saw Mr. Bunch, they recognized him as a member of Black Lives Matter who had been at the police commission meeting and determined that he would not be able to enter. They decided in that moment to stop him physically, to wrestle him to the ground, to arrest him, and to charge him. Ms. Flores was there. She protested his false arrest, and for her protesting, she was also assaulted and arrested and charged. Both of them had felony charges. Mr. Bunch was charged with assault and battery on a peace officer causing injury. Ms. Flores was charged with felony lynching, and they were held on $50,000 bail. On Friday, when they appeared, the district attorney's office declined to prosecute, but the city attorney's office, true to form, picked this case up. And at the arraignment of those charges, the city attorney opposed OR for 2 people who have never been in trouble, have no criminal record, not even failed to appear, insisted on a $50,000 bail, and then announced that Mayor Eric Garcetti and Chief Charlie Beck had personally requested that the court order a protective order against Evan Bunch and against Luz Flores, requiring them to stay 50 feet away from the mayor and from the chief of police. This request for the protective order, like the jailing of journalist Jasmyn Cannick, is unprecedented and unwarranted and an outrageous collusive attempt on the part of the mayor, the police chief, and the city attorney to criminalize Black civic engagement and to bully and intimidate those Black folks who have not been chosen as the go-to Black leadership by white city leader elites into silence and submission. These latest arrests and prosecutions are part of a pattern and practice in which Black people who are exposing the contradiction people arrested last November 2014. Of all the demonstrators who occupied freeways and train tracks, how did they choose the Black Lives Matter 7 to be prosecuted while others went free? Why are Black Lives Matter participants being battered and assaulted by police when they ask for a meeting with the mayor, when other activists and other leaders are allowed to meet without such reprisal? Why is Jasmyn Cannick, a respected journalist, not being treated as the legitimate journalist that she is? This unequal and racist treatment by city leaders who describe themselves as progressive and friends of the Black community must end and must end today. While calls go out across this country for the removal of the Confederate flag from government spaces in the South, we call for an end to Jim Crow prosecution right here in the courthouses of Los Angeles. To pursue these bogus charges dishonors the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., Fannie Lou Hamer, Ella Baker, SNCC, the Freedom Riders, and others who have spoken out against injustice throughout history. The mayor, the chief, and the city attorney claim to honor and admire these very people during King's Holiday, Black History Month, and election and appointment time. We urge the city attorney to drop all of the charges against Ms. Cannick, against all of the Black Lives members, against all of the Black Lives Matter allies, and demonstrate that they truly believe that all Black Lives matter, including the Black lives who challenge the status quo and speak truth to power. Thank you.
Another speaker? Or?
Yeah, any questions? There's gonna be another speaker.
Okay, you can go ahead. We'll have the speakers and we'll have questions after.
I'm gonna introduce Dr. Melina Abdullah.
Good morning, my name is Melina Abdullah. I'm an organizer with Black Lives Matter. And
put your name for us, please.
My name is spelled M-E-L-I-N-A. Last name is A, B as in boy, D as in David, U-L-L-A-H. And I'm an organizer with Black Lives Matter. I'm here because we're standing together. Black Lives Matter is a team. We believe in group-centric leadership. We're very, very proud of the young people who are organizing with us, and we want to make sure that they feel supported. I'm also here to bring us back to the key issue and to remind us of why we're here in the first place, to ground us back down and to remember the name of Ezell Ford. So for the last year, almost a year, on August 11th, 2014, Ezell Ford was murdered by 2 police officers. And we've been organizing in the city ever since. We've been organizing throughout this nation in response to the police violence that's exacted upon Black people every 28 hours. And so I want us to remember that we are here for a purpose, that we are here to seek justice for Ezell Ford, and we are here to seek justice for Black people in the city of Los Angeles, which has a record of the most murderous police force in the entire nation. So the Los Angeles Police Department kills more people than any other city in this country. And so that's what we've been trying to do. That's what we've been trying to change for the last year and for the last several months especially. When we think about what Evan Bunch and Luz Flores were doing last week and following the man, it's part of what we've had to do because we have a duty as residents of this city to engage our elected officials, to engage our public officials, and to let them know what it is we want. Because the mayor has been refused to meet with Black Lives Matter, because he's refused to engage with us, we've done our duty as citizens, engaging in civic engagement action. Civic engagement can range from anything from voting to lobbying. Really, if for another group of people, that's what this action would be called. When you go to a public event, when you try to get the ear of public officials, that is what we call lobbying. Unfortunately, it's been passed in this city as a criminal act, and I think that all of us who are residents of this city need to see that as an assault on democracy. We need to recognize that what we do is train young people to believe that we live in a democracy where when they engage civically, they can change things. And that's what Evan Bunch and Luz Flores and lots of folks, the hundreds of folks who are involved in the Black Lives Matter movement have been doing, is trying to engage civically. Unfortunately, we live in a city and we're under the leadership of public officials who see that as a criminal act. So the response that a protective order is called for when young people say we simply want to talk about the key issue for Black people in Los Angeles, which is police and state-sanctioned violence. The thought that becomes a criminal act is really an erosion of our democratic process. And so we all need to be outraged. There needs to be an international outcry around this kind of false sense of democracy. And we implore public officials to change that process. We implore the city attorney to not engage in these retaliatory measures where those of us who've been active are assaulted again by the system that we're supposed to be protected by. And so we are committing ourselves as Black Lives Matter, we're committing ourselves as activists and organizers to remain undeterred, to continue to seek justice for Ezell Ford, and to engage civically, which is our responsibility as residents of this city. Thank you.
I just want to add a few points because I think that it helps to expand the discussion. It's interesting that I'm here today on behalf of both members of Black Lives Matter and Jasmyn Cannick. Jasmyn Cannick is not a member of Black Lives Matter. So it's not just Black Lives Matter that's being attacked. It is Black folks, Black people who are exposing, Black people who are pointing out the contradictions, Black people who are asking for the truth, who dare to speak the truth. And so we can see the retaliatory nature of it. And when they try to say, oh, well, people are committing crime, Jasmyn Cannick wasn't committing a crime, just as these Black Lives Matter folks are not committing crime. Jasmyn Cannick is a journalist. She is a journalist. She was a journalist at that time, acting in a journalist capacity, and yet she was still targeted. Chief Beck knows she was a journalist. Chief Beck has been interviewed by her for the Los Angeles Sentinel, sat across from her, laughed and smiled with her. But that was before she began to expose what was happening at the higher ranks of LAPD, and before she began to expose what was happening with Chief Charlie Beck and his family within LAPD. And then the tables turned, and they decided that no, now suddenly she's not a journalist, now suddenly she's a protester. In fact, she's leading protests, and we need to go after her. And they know that that's a lie. They know that that's a lie. I think that's a very important point to make, because people might be out there thinking, well, I'm not a member of Black Lives Matter, so I'm safe. You're not safe. If you are a Black person who is engaged in civic work in this community, in this city, and if it is going to embarrass in any way city leaders, they're going to come after you. And we're saying that must end today.
As a journalist yourself, what do you understand that?
I'll just say something really, really, really quickly. All I want to say is that in Los Angeles, a lot of people in the media know me. I work as a political consultant, a media consultant. I'm on the air on KJLH. I'm written for so many newspapers and magazines, as well as online, okay? Chief Beck knows exactly who I am. I've interviewed him before. I have the photos to prove it. It used to be all good between me and Chief Beck until I started taking a closer look at what was going on in the department. That night, I made it perfectly clear who I was there for, which was KJLH FM, a local radio station here. I made it perfectly clear. I even wrote that on my arrest card, and they still chose to arrest me. The chief was like less than 100 feet away from me, like looking at me when I got arrested. So I think that this is a waste of city resources. I also think it's a waste of the court's time. And I think that oftentimes the media, sometimes we see Black people and we like to just lump them all together. Well, they're all activists, they're all protesters. I'm not a protester and leading in those protests. Haven't led a protest against the police. All I've ever done was attend them, cover them, send the info back to the radio station or wherever else it needed to go. And for my troubles, I had to spend the night in the Van Nuys jail That was November 26th. Today is June 30th, and I'm still dealing with that.
What exactly are the charges you're facing?
Resisting arrest is one of them, but there are several charges. And there, you know, if anybody who's seen the video of my arrest can clearly see that there was no resisting the arrest.
Any other questions?
We're good. Thank you very much.
And I'm the attorney for 10 people who are being prosecuted by the city attorney for retaliation for them talking about and giving information with respect to the injustices going on within law enforcement in the city.
I want to thank my front page audience for turning out.
Yeah, I wish we should have had more people support.
Thank you very, very, very much. See, these people don't
You can
listen
thank
to the front
Dominique
page.
because she
That's my
announced
girl.
it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I'm on the front page all the time, so I make sure she knew about
I didn't have to work, so.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, you said one of the charges was resisting arrest. What were the other charges?
I think it's like failure to disperse.
I just need to ask some questions.
They just made up a lot of
It may be.
charges.
Yes, they did.
Failure to disperse.
You don't agree with them right away. Make something up.